I stepped onto the porch like a guest, not a daughter. The wood creaked under my boots, as if rejecting the weight of my return. Lights wrapped around the railings blinked dutifully blue-green gold, but the warmth they promised stopped at the threshold. I stood there a moment, gloved hands tight around the handle of a modest suitcase until the door opened. Mom didn't smile. She didn't scowl either. Her mouth made that vague shape people use at grocery stores, civil, but absent. "You look healthy," she said, stepping aside. I crossed the threshold with the caution of someone entering enemy territory. The smell of cinnamon hung in the air, manufactured like from a plug-in dispenser, not the kind that comes from cookies or memory. Her eyes skimmed me like I was a coat rack left in the wrong room. I didn't take off my coat. Emily's voice floated in before I saw her. "Didn't expect you to actually come." She appeared from the hallway holding a glass of something sparkling and pink. Her smile was perfect, rehearsed a politician's smile, maybe a TV anchor's. She kissed the air near my cheek. "Welcome back." She looked good, I'll give her that. Expensive tan. Hair styled just enough to appear casual. Even her holiday sweater had shoulder pads. God help us. I followed her into the living room. Everything was perfect, coordinated, cold. Gold garland curled around the banisters. A 12-foot artificial tree dominated the corner, its base surrounded by boxes in elegant wrapping. The fireplace flickered beside a wall of framed photos, headshots of Emily in various dresses, Emily at a podium, Emily with public figures I recognized but didn't care to name. There were no family photos, no childhood pictures, and none, zero, of me. I hadn't expected a parade. I remembered Mom once told me, "Don't expect a parade just because you wore a uniform." But I hadn't realized I'd be erased entirely. "Tea?" someone asked softly. I turned. Aunt Rita, thinner than I remembered but still sharp-eyed, stood near the kitchen archway. She held a porcelain teacup already full, all ready for me. I nodded and took it. Her hand touched mine, warm, 1 degree above silence. I sat on the edge of the couch, my spine straight. Years of barracks discipline made it impossible to slouch. My eyes scanned the room. The shelf above the mantel, once lined with my father's medals, was bare, replaced by minimalist art and one of Emily's foundation awards. My throat tightened, but not from sadness. It was the recognition of absence. Not just mine, but his. I sipped the tea. Lukewarm, the kind made for appearances, not comfort. Emily flitted around the room, adjusting pillows and making sure her angles caught the light. Mom returned with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Vegetarian now, she mentioned, not to me, but to no one in particular. There was a silence. The kind that pretends to be peaceful, but is actually layered with judgments too polite to be spoken aloud. I took another sip and set the cup down. "Where's Dad's military display?" I asked. Carolyn didn't flinch. Her response came crisp and practiced, like a line rehearsed many times in front of a mirror. It didn't match the decor. The tea sat heavy in my stomach. Emily laughed softly, as if something on her phone had distracted her. No one met my eyes. I inhaled once, then stood. In a slow, steady motion, I reached for the zipper of my coat and slid it down. The room fell quiet. Fabric parted to reveal deep olive green brass buttons, polished ribbons aligned with precision. Full dress uniform. My name stitched above the heart they had forgotten. Nobody said a word. He left me a letter. She left it unopened for 9 years. I told them I needed air. Not a walk, not a drive. Just air. The kind that lives in stillness and wood beams, not behind the curated conversations downstairs. So I climbed the narrow steps to the attic. The door stuck a little. Years of paint, or maybe reluctance. But it gave way with a push, and I stepped into the dim, dust-flecked quiet. Light filtered through a small window, catching the tiny movements of time suspended in the air. The attic had always been a kind of sanctuary when I was a kid, when Emily wasn't allowed to follow. Now it felt like sacred ground no one remembered to bless. Boxes stacked unevenly along the far wall. Plastic bins labeled Xmas Crafts, and one marked Emily Middle School in thick Sharpie. My name didn't appear anywhere. I moved slowly, brushing aside a curtain of cobwebs near the back corner. That's when I saw it. A small green military footlocker. Standard issue. Worn handles, one hinge slightly bent. I knelt beside it. It wasn't locked, just latched like someone once meant to open it, but never did. I reached for the latch. Lauren. I froze. It was Aunt Rita. Her face peeked from the stairwell opening, startled, maybe even guilty. I just needed some quiet, I said quickly, hand resting on the box but not opening it. She stepped in carefully, brushing her hands together like the dust might accuse her of something. Her eyes dropped to the footlocker. You found it? I looked up. You knew it was here. Her gaze softened with something between shame and grief. You never got the letter. What letter? She didn't answer. Instead, she knelt beside me and gently lifted the latch. Inside were a few neatly folded uniforms, a pair of boots polished one last time, a weathered photo of me and Dad at my ROTC commissioning, and an envelope. It was yellowed slightly with age sealed and unmistakably deliberate. Thick paper. His handwriting, strong slanted, wrote only 5 words. For Lauren, only her. I didn't breathe. Flashback hit without warning. Dad in uniform standing in the kitchen the day before his final deployment. The morning light had caught in his silvering hair. He held the envelope and looked at Mom. Give this to her. If anything happens. She didn't argue. She just nodded, thin-lipped. Rita's voice broke into the memory. Your mom told me it wasn't important. Said it was just sentiment. Sentiment, I repeated, nearly spitting the word. Rita's fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the envelope and handed it to me. He wanted you to have it. I should have said something sooner, but, well, you know how Carolyn is. I took the envelope. It was heavier than I expected, like the years had soaked into it. For a second, I wanted to tear it open right there. But I didn't. Instead, I slid it into the inner pocket of my coat, the one I used for orders and dog tags. I'm sorry, Rita said quietly. I'm not angry at you. I wasn't sure that was true. I wasn't sure what I felt. My chest hurt, and not because of the cold. I stood slowly, nodding toward the stairwell. Let's go back down before she sends Emily to check on us. Rita gave a tiny, rueful smile. That evening after the dinner, where no one asked me a single question and the wine flowed only into certain glasses, I returned to the guest bedroom. I closed the door softly and turned on the lamp with the broken shade. The letter was still in my coat. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the envelope in both hands. My thumb traced the edge of the seal. His handwriting stared back at me, silent and patient. I could almost hear him. Not all battles are fought with bullets. I swallowed. Not yet. She asked me to iron the napkins. I once detonated IEDs in Kandahar. Emily handed me the linen stack like it was a family heirloom. The ones with the gold trim go on the outside, she chirped. Just follow the folding diagram. Mom gets testy if the corners aren't symmetrical. I took the napkins without a word. The iron was already heating on the side table like this had been planned. Across the kitchen, Mom basted a turkey with military precision. She hadn't spoken to me since last night. Emily, meanwhile, directed the household like a showrunner. Every movement was curated for aesthetic and approval. I watched her float from room to room, laughing at nothing, checking the garland angle on the banister, readjusting a bowl of cranberries until it popped against the table runner. She gave Ethan a quick kiss on the cheek and then turned back to me. You're so good with your hands, she said. We all have our strengths. You're so practical. I smiled the way you do when someone pretends to compliment you but leaves the bruises visible. Ethan was sitting at the counter sipping coffee. He watched me for a moment, then asked casually, Did you ever serve overseas? I looked up from the iron. A few places, I said. You. He nodded. Medical Corps, Kandahar, 2012. I folded the corner of a napkin slowly. I know. He blinked. Wait. Were you with Task Force Sentinel? I glanced at him, then back to the linen. For a while. Silence stretched. He set down his mug. I was with 3rd Platoon. We got hit on the east side of Kala House Ridge. Someone called in an airlift just in time, cleared the ridge first. They said it was a female field officer, but I never got a name. I pressed the iron down. He leaned in slightly. Was that you? I didn't answer right away. The iron hissed. I had good intel, I said softly. Emily's heels clicked as she re-entered holding a tray of figs and goat cheese. She caught Ethan's expression before he had time to mask it. Everything okay? She asked, her smile static. Fine, he said, not looking at her. She glanced at the napkins. Lauren's a godsend. You should see how straight she lines things. Yeah, he murmured. I'm starting to. She tilted her head, confused, maybe even alarmed. I didn't meet her eyes. Later that afternoon, as everyone scattered to prep for dinner, I went upstairs to retrieve a scarf. I found Ethan in the hallway, phone in hand, leaning against the railing. He looked up. Hey. I nodded. Just checking something, he said, thumbing through his screen. I didn't ask what. I already knew. That night, while the fire crackled and Emily showed off her charity calendar to Aunt Rita, Ethan sat quietly in the corner with his phone. He zoomed in on an image, a blurry field photo, camo-clad officer crouched near a medevac zone. Her face was partially turned, but the bone structure. The stance. He whispered under his breath. No way. They handed me a salad fork. I was more qualified to command artillery. It sat by my plate, small, delicate, utterly useless. Sterling silver polished to a mirror shine, its tines curved like they'd never met a real meal. The rest of the table shimmered under candlelight, bone-white china, embroidered napkins folded with surgical precision, my work, and wine glasses that cost more than my monthly housing stipend overseas. Carolyn's Christmas table had always been more theater than tradition. Aunt Rita said it best earlier. Christmas dinners aren't meals, they're performances. The script tonight was clear. Emily played the lead. I was an extra. She rose to give the toast, her crystal flute raised just so, like she'd practiced it. Here's to family, she began, eyes scanning the table. To legacy, to love, and to the work we've done, to build something meaningful together. Her gaze brushed over me like I was part of the wallpaper. A few aunts clinked glasses. The cousins murmured agreement. Then Emily added all soft laughter and practiced modesty. Of course Lauren's between projects right now. Always was the adventurous one, off on a new chapter. I didn't flinch. I knew that line was coming. They always phrase it like curiosity, but it's always punishment. Carolyn dabbed the corner of her lips with a linen napkin. She's got a good sense of direction, she said, without looking at me. Used to deliver packages when she got back. Always knew her way around a zip code. A ripple of polite laughter. My jaw didn't move. Across the table, Ethan froze mid-bite. A distant cousin leaned in toward me. So what do you do now, Lauren? I sipped my water. I don't advertise. More awkward laughter. Emily swooped in like a lifeline. She's modest, used to deliver ammo or something in the field, right? That's when Ethan set down his glass. The sound was louder than it should have been. Excuse me, he said, standing. The table fell silent. Did you just mock someone who saved my life? All eyes turned. Emily blinked, caught mid-smirk. Ethan looked straight at her, then at Carolyn. You know I was with the Medical Corps in Kandahar, 3rd Platoon, 2012. There was a woman field officer who cleared the ridge before the ambush. She called in an airlift that pulled us out seconds before detonation. Silence tightened around the table. She didn't deliver ammo, he continued. She coordinated an air extraction, secured a kill zone, and saved 12 lives, including mine. Carolyn's fork slipped from her hand. Aunt Rita, to my left, slowly reached into her purse. I caught a glimpse of her phone camera already rolling. Ethan turned to me, straightened slightly, and raised his hand. Then he saluted. The clink of his glass still rang in my ears when I stepped outside. The door didn't slam behind me, it clicked. A subtle rejection of theatrics, but still the echo of Ethan's words. His salute hung over everything like smoke. The air was cold and sharp enough to bite. Holiday lights blinked half-heartedly from neighboring porches. Somewhere down the block, wind chimes clinked against themselves like nervous teeth. I stepped off the porch and onto the front walk. My breath came out in soft plumes. My dress shoes crunched faintly against the gravel path. Everything felt like an ending I hadn't scripted. Footsteps behind me. Lauren. Ethan called out gently. I didn't turn, but I slowed. He caught up, standing beside me with his hands in his coat pockets. The porch light behind us painted our shadows long across the lawn. I had to say something, he said. I couldn't stay silent in there. I looked straight ahead. You didn't speak for me. He blinked, wounded. You spoke for yourself, I added. That matters more. He exhaled, nodding slowly. Yeah. We stood in silence for a beat too long. Then, as if understanding his place, he stepped back toward the porch. Merry Christmas, Captain. I didn't correct him. Let him have the title. Let him believe in something worth naming. By the time I reached my car parked 2 houses down under a dying street lamp, my fingers had gone numb. I reached for the keys in my coat pocket, but instead brushed against the sealed envelope. The letter from Dad. Still unopened. Still too loud. I stood there, hand resting on the handle, when my phone vibrated. Rita. It's up. I unlocked the screen. Her message included a link. A video. 19 seconds long. Caption. She saved lives. Her family laughed. So he stood up. I watched it. Once, then twice. My own expression barely visible, stoic still, while Ethan stood, eyes full of something deeper than rage. He saluted. The camera panned slowly toward me as I looked down at the table, then back up, emotion unreadable. The clip already had 2,800 views, 10 minutes old. I leaned against the car door, overwhelmed not by embarrassment but something softer. Something like relief. I turned and looked at the car window, my reflection staring back. Dress uniform, still sharp, nameplate catching the amber streetlight. I didn't smile out of pride. I smiled because for the first time in that house I didn't need to defend myself. I already had. The wind picked up. Behind me, muffled voices echoed faintly through the walls of the house I used to call home. I got in the car. The screen lit up again. One message: you're trending. I walked away from the house, but not from the war. It was past midnight when I pulled into the gravel lot behind a roadside motel called the Elmwood. The neon sign buzzed faintly in the cold, flickering between life and decay. A Christmas wreath hung lopsided on the office door, drooping like it had given up, trying to look festive. Just one night, I told the clerk. He didn't ask questions, just slid the key across the counter with a weary nod. Room 207 smelled like dust and bleach. The wallpaper curled at the corners and the heater wheezed like it had asthma. Still, it was quiet, blessedly so. I left the TV off, turned my phone face down on the nightstand. There had been too many pings on the drive, Ethan's name flashing again and again. I didn't read them. I didn't want an apology, not now. Maybe not ever. I pulled the blinds halfway shut, then sat on the bed. The envelope from my father lay in my lap, unopened, as untouched as the night he must have sealed it. I ran my fingers over the faded ink. For Lauren, only her. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink for a long while. Just sat there with the heaviness of silence pressing against my chest. Somewhere far from here, Aunt Rita was probably still awake. Her quiet nod echoed in my memory as I walked away from that dinner table. Some battles win themselves. You just need to stand still. But the world wasn't standing still. Without me knowing, it was already moving. Back at her house, Rita had uploaded the clip. Not to her Facebook friends, not to a private group, to everyone. First, it hit a few hundred views, then 2,000, 10,000, 80,000. Comments flooded in. Who is she? That salute broke me. My sister did the same thing to me. She's what dignity looks like. Veteran groups started reposting. Army moms, former Marines, anonymous accounts with American flags and usernames like Desert Doc 45 and Honor First. The hashtag appeared out of nowhere. I salute her right. I didn't know any of it. Not yet. I sat by the motel window, legs curled beneath me, the letter untouched. My uniform still hung neatly from a hanger on the closet door, catching the moonlight. I wasn't hiding, I was processing. Retreat was part of survival. Anyone who's seen real battle knows that. My phone lit up. A single buzz. Then another. I turned it over, hesitated, then tapped the screen. The notifications were no longer just Ethan. CNN Politics had messaged me on Twitter. Hi Lauren, this is Rachel from CNN, hoping to speak with you about the dinner clip that's circulating. I stared at the message, not with panic, but with a growing sense of inevitability. I didn't want this. I hadn't asked for any of it. But it had started now, and nothing I did could undo it. That's when the knock came. 3 sharp raps on the motel door. I approached slowly, peered through the peephole. The night clerk stood awkwardly, shifting from foot to foot. His face looked apologetic under the harsh hallway light. Ma'am, he said there's a camera crew out front asking for you. My name was suddenly everywhere, and none of the headlines were mine. I woke to static. Not from outside, but inside me. My body was still, but my thoughts had gone feral, running faster than I could catch them. The motel alarm clock blinked red digits into the dark. 7:03 a.m., Christmas morning. I sat up slowly. My back ached. I'd fallen asleep in my clothes. The TV remote sat untouched on the dresser, but I picked it up now and clicked it on. I didn't expect what I saw. CNN. Then Fox. Then MSNBC. It didn't matter the network, the footage was the same. The silent clip of Ethan standing in the middle of a velvet-draped dinner table, saluting a woman with a tight jaw and haunted eyes. Me. They blurred my face, but not enough. Anyone who'd served with me would know. Anyone who looked closely would. One anchor called it a silent protest. Another said, "This woman's identity remains unknown, but we're told she is a former field officer, and this may be a case of stolen valor in reverse." I turned the volume down. My phone was a battlefield of its own. Over 80 text messages, countless Twitter tags, and voicemails waiting like landmines. I opened one from Ethan. They're digging into everything. Articles, databases, DoD archives. Someone's about to leak your record. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to explode. Please let me explain. I need to talk. He sounded desperate. I played the next one. My mother. Come home immediately. You're humiliating us. Her voice wasn't panicked. It was enraged. Cold and clipped like a CEO threatening litigation. I laughed quietly. A sharp, bitter sound. She'd never said thank you for my service, not once. But this was suddenly my fault. I checked Emily's social media out of morbid curiosity. Her Instagram had gone quiet. No new stories. Her last post, an over-filtered photo of a dinner table centerpiece with the caption "Family," is everything was getting buried in comments. Is that your sister? What did she do to you? You let them mock her. You built your brand on fake virtue. Emily hadn't said a word. I didn't feel triumphant, just numb. I put my phone down and opened Twitter. The hashtag was now trending. Salute. Her right tweets scrolled past like a drumbeat. That woman is a war hero and her family treated her like garbage. Find her. Elevate her. Let her speak. She didn't ask for attention, she earned it. And then it happened. A blue-check journalist, someone I didn't know, but thousands did, posted screenshots of my military commendations. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Joint Service Commendation, deployment logs from Kandahar, photos I barely remembered taking me in fatigues flanked by Afghan National Army officers, briefing maps, sandstorms in the distance. One line stood out in all caps. Her name is Major Lauren Pierce, and she's been silent for too long. The replies came fast. A goddamn hero. This is who we ignore while clapping for TikTok influencers. She saved people, and they handed her a salad fork. I stared at the screen. I wanted to shut it all down, but I couldn't look away. My heart didn't race. It slowed. I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't afraid. But I was angry. Quietly, deeply angry in a way that filled every inch of my chest like smoke. They didn't just erase me. They replaced me with someone shinier, safer, more malleable. And now the mask was slipping. The room buzzed again. This time, not from my phone, from the television. The anchor's voice was smooth and deliberate, as if delivering a eulogy. Major Lauren Pierce, if you're watching, we want your voice. The world gave me a podium. I gave it silence. I stared at the email again. The subject line read, "Tonight's primetime interview, your voice matters." Beneath it, a message from a national news producer dripping with flattery. "We would be honored to have you. We'll fly you and prep your segment, amplify your message. The country is behind you." I closed the laptop without replying. I hadn't even unpacked my duffel bag, but somehow the world had already decided what version of me it wanted. A headline. A symbol. A woman in uniform who walked out of a house of hypocrisy and into viral sainthood. But they didn't know me. Not really. And they sure as hell didn't own my silence. Outside the motel window, snow had begun to fall, not the kind that blankets, but the kind that pelts sideways. I watched it through the dusty glass, one hand gripping the envelope I still hadn't opened. My father's letter sat like a stone in my palm. 9 years unopened. 9 years of not being ready. And now the world was shouting my name, demanding answers I hadn't even given myself. A knock at the door pulled me back. I didn't expect Ethan. He looked different in the daylight. Less righteous, more human. His hair was wet from the snow eyes, unsure. He held a takeout cup in one hand, cheap motel coffee I guessed, and something like regret in the other. "I figured you might still be here," he said, stepping inside before I invited him. I didn't tell him to leave. "Not yet." "You okay?" he asked. I nodded once. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." But I needed to say something. I said nothing. He shifted his weight like a soldier standing too long at attention. "They're still calling me. CNN, MSNBC, local news. Everyone wants to know who you are." "I'm no one," I replied. "That's not true." I turned away. "You want something, Ethan?" He didn't answer right away, just looked at me hard. I think people need to hear from you. You could speak for so many." I let out a sharp laugh. "You think I'm some flag to wave a redemption arc for your own guilt?" He flinched. "That's not fair." "You want fair," I said, stepping closer. "You sat at that table, watched them erase me, and said nothing until it served you." His face reddened. "I didn't mean for it to go viral. But you did know who I was," I said, watching his reaction closely. "Didn't you?" He looked down. "I knew," he admitted. "I knew from the moment you said Sentinel. You saved our medic. He was my best friend. You used me." I said, voice flat. "I thought if I brought you back here you'd finally get what you deserved," he said. "And who made you the arbiter of what I deserve?" Silence sat between us. Heavy. Final. Then I walked to the door, opened it, and waited. He didn't argue. He just looked at me one last time, the snow still melting on his shoulders. "Lauren," he said softly, "I didn't mean to hurt you. That's the problem," I whispered. "You didn't think about me at all." While the world looked for me, Emily deleted her entire online presence. I found out about Emily's digital disappearance the same way everyone else did, through strangers on Reddit. Someone had started a thread called "The Pierce Family Cover-Up," and it was gaining traction faster than any press release ever could. The top comment read, "Why would Emily Pierce, self-proclaimed founder of Veterans Rise, suddenly nuke her LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube channel the day after her sister goes viral?" Below that, another post asked, "Is it true she built her nonprofit on her sister's credentials?" I sat on the motel bed, legs crossed, reading in silence while the coffee grew cold beside me. Emily had always been meticulous about optics, posing in front of American flags, shaking hands with veterans, weaving carefully scripted captions beneath staged candids. But the internet didn't care about lighting or PR. The internet wanted blood, and it was beginning to circle her like a wolf pack. One by one, her sites vanished. Website 404, LinkedIn deleted, Instagram wiped clean. Carolyn called that afternoon. I didn't answer, so she left a message that began with a tremble and ended in a sob. "Lauren, you have to stop this. They're tearing Emily apart. You're her sister, for God's sake." She never once asked if I was okay. Never once mentioned the letter, the toast, the silence in that room when Ethan saluted me. It was all about Emily now. Always had been. I almost deleted the voicemail, but something stopped me. I kept it like a dead leaf pressed in an old book. Not because it was beautiful, but because it proved something once lived. Later that evening, a knock at my motel door startled me. I expected a reporter or maybe Ethan again. Instead, there was no one. Just a plain white envelope slid under the door. Inside, a printed Reddit thread and a handwritten note in curling script. "You should see what they've found. Some mirrors are worth holding up. Rita." The thread was brutal. A timeline had been compiled, photos, certificates, quotes, all dissected. One user highlighted discrepancies in Emily's award history. Another compared her nonprofit's tax records to known military timelines. But it was one sentence that stopped my breath cold. "Was Major Lauren Pierce disowned to elevate Emily's brand?" I reread the line 5 times. That word, disowned, felt heavier than any rank I'd ever worn. They saw it. The strangers. The ones I never met, never spoke to. They looked at the same silence I'd swallowed for years and read it like a crime scene. The world was speaking truths I'd been too tired to say out loud. My phone buzzed. A new message from Rita. "It's time you read your father's letter." I turned my head slowly, eyes landing on the side table. The envelope still rested there untouched. Its edges were curled slightly now from days of avoidance. Outside, the snow had stopped. The air stilled. I reached for the letter but didn't open it. Not yet. His handwriting hadn't aged. Mine had. The letter was thinner than I expected. Just 2 pages folded into thirds, the edges yellowed and soft from time, not from handling. My name was written in blue ink across the front, "For Lauren, only her." That same phrase echoed back from Aunt Rita's whisper, from the attic dust, from my own hesitation that had lasted nearly a decade. I turned off the motel TV. The only light came from the desk lamp, soft and yellow. Outside, snow drifted sideways in the wind, silencing the parking lot and every car in it. I unfolded the letter slowly, my fingers trembling, not out of fear, but from the weight of permission. I wasn't just opening a piece of paper. I was opening a door no one else had offered me. It was dated December 20th, the year I'd last seen him alive. "Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. Not because I left you, but because time always outruns the honest ones. I don't know what they'll tell you about me. I don't know what you'll hear about yourself. But I do know this: the world doesn't reward quiet strength. They'll forget you not because you're small, but because you're not loud. They'll mock what they don't understand, but never believe the mirror they hold. They'll dress lies in applause. Don't wear it. You're the bravest person I ever knew. You taught me that silence wasn't weakness, it was choice. I saw the way you packed your bags without drama. I saw you keep your tears when your commander's name was listed second to last on that casualty report. I saw you save a friend by dragging him 50 yards under fire and say afterward, "It's what we trained for." I know you'll want justice someday for me for yourself. But listen closely. If they bury you, let it be seed. Grow through concrete. Crack their certainty with your presence. Stand so tall they have to look up to avoid you. Justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs truth. And the truth is, you're the legacy I never earned but somehow got. Dad, my vision blurred halfway through. I didn't cry, at least not how people cry in movies. No sobs, just the hot, steady sting of tears that wouldn't blink away. I set the letter down and stared out the window. Snow had blanketed the windshield of my car. Streetlights glowed gold over the lot. My reflection ghosted back in the glass, older, quieter, but not forgotten. Not anymore. I remembered boot camp, the way the walls echoed with shouting, the way I whispered my way through all of it and still finished top 3. I remembered Afghanistan, the silence before the detonation, the scream that wasn't mine but lived in my spine for years. I remembered my discharge, the way no one met me at the airport. The paper in my hand said honorably separated, but my mother's silence felt like a different verdict. I looked back at the letter. Justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs truth. He was right. It had never been about revenge. Not for me. I didn't want apologies or headlines or ceremonies. I just wanted space to be whole in front of the people who once decided I didn't matter. And maybe now, I could take that space. I opened my laptop. It had a low battery warning, ironic considering how charged my chest felt. I opened a blank document. Not Word, not notes, just a browser tab. I typed slowly. No edits, no backspaces, no flourishes. My name is Lauren Pierce. I have something to say one time only. She opens her laptop and types, "My name is Lauren Pierce. I have something to say one time only. I wasn't here to trend. I was here to tell the truth once. I didn't wear the uniform. That morning, I thought about it. I even laid it across the bed like a decision waiting for a verdict. But no, this wasn't about optics. It wasn't about salutes or medals or viral videos. It was about setting the record straight without screaming. A scalpel, not a sword. By 6:55 p.m., I had everything ready. The motel desk lamp cast a soft yellow circle behind me. The walls were blank. No flags. No photos. Just a woman in a gray sweater sitting at a cheap laminate desk in a quiet room off I-85. I turned off all notifications. No incoming calls. No pings. No distractions. Just me, my laptop, and 5 minutes of truth. The live stream began at exactly 7:00 p.m. No countdown, no theme music, just my face calm, unreadable, and my voice. "Good evening," I said. "My name is Major Lauren Pierce. This will be brief, and it will be my only statement." I watched myself in the webcam window, small, distant, detached. I served with Task Force Sentinel 2011 to 2014. My unit deployed to Kandahar, Helmand, and Paktika provinces. I was a field operations commander specializing in IED route clearance and rapid medevac coordination. On July 18, 2012, I sustained injuries during a field extraction that led to my discharge under honorable conditions. My voice didn't tremble. I received the Army Commendation Medal with V device for valor and the Combat Action Badge. I do not share these details for applause, and I don't offer them as resume material. I offer them because they are facts, no emotion, just air and syllables and truth. I never asked to go viral. I didn't want recognition. I still don't. But there is a difference between advocacy and appropriation. One is rooted in truth. The other wears it like costume jewelry. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. I was told my job was small, that it didn't matter, that it was too complicated, too uncomfortable, too unfeminine. I was asked to iron napkins while my name disappeared from family records. But my job wasn't small, and neither is the truth. The light from the laptop screen glowed faintly on my hands. This will be my only public statement. I will not take interviews. I will not clarify. This isn't for debate. This is for the record. I held the silence for exactly 5 seconds, long enough to land. Thank you. Then I ended the stream. The file uploaded automatically. I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the window. A few flakes of snow floated like ash against the night sky. Quiet, unapologetic. Within minutes, the view count climbed $10,000, then 20, then $100,000. I sat on the bed, breathing evenly as the motel Wi-Fi strained under the weight of what I had unleashed, without saying a single name. Ethan texted, "That was the strongest thing I've ever seen. Thank you." I didn't reply. Someone emailed a screenshot the video posted to Reddit's front page under the thread title, "When Silence Becomes the Sharpest Knife." Within 2 hours, it had 3 million views. By 9:30 p.m., someone sent me a tweet. A U.S. senator had reposted the video with a caption in bold, "Fraud in military representation is not advocacy. Investigation begins tomorrow." A senator reposts it with the caption, "Fraud in military representation is not advocacy." The same stage where she once stood proud was now empty. No one clapped. The banner behind her had once read, "Veterans Forward Foundation." Now it had been quietly taken down, replaced by a generic city skyline background in her live stream frame. I didn't watch it live. I didn't need to. By the time I clicked the link, the comment section was already locked. The like count had frozen, and a little gray notice hovered beneath her face. "This creator has limited who can reply." Emily's apology lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. She wore soft gray, the kind stylists suggest for sympathy optics. Her makeup was muted, her voice low. She began with, "I never meant to hurt anyone." She ended with, "I deeply respect those who serve." In between, there was no mention of me, not once. Earlier that day, my phone had buzzed with a message forwarded from Rita, a legal notice delivered to Emily's nonprofit inbox. "Request for military verification. Urgent response required." The attachment came from the Office of Inspector General. One of the bullet points read, "Discrepancy noted between listed honorary credentials and publicly available military records." News outlets had picked it up by afternoon. Charity watchdog flags. Inconsistencies in veteran nonprofit founder, accused of misrepresenting family military history. Silent Sisters video sparks formal audit. Someone on Reddit had posted a brutal side-by-side left panel, a grainy image of me, full dress uniform, kneeling beside a wounded soldier. Right panel, Emily wearing a blazer, pinning medals on mannequins during her 2021 tribute gala. Caption: "One served, one sold it." Carolyn called again. This time I answered. "I don't know why." Her voice cracked the moment she spoke. "You win okay? Are you happy now?" I didn't reply. "She's ruined. Her board's resigning. Sponsors are disappearing. They're saying fraud." "Do you even understand what that means for us?" I stayed silent. "You've made your point, Lauren. Just fix it. Please. Talk to someone. Issue a statement saying she misunderstood anything. You don't have to keep going." I let the silence widen. It stretched like a tightrope across generations of denial. "You're her sister, Carolyn?" Finally screamed. "No," I said softly. "I was the invisible one." Then I hung up. The apology video was down within the hour. A tweet from the Foundation's official account read, "We are taking time to reflect and restructure. No signature, no face, just vapor." I turned off the screen and poured a cup of tea. It wasn't triumph, I felt. It wasn't satisfaction. It was gravity. Finally, the shift of weight returning to balance. Later that night, there was a knock at my motel door. A courier, faceless in the cold. "Major Lauren Pierce," he asked. His breath clouded as he handed me a sealed envelope. Inside subpoena, civil fraud hearing, requested appearance January 12th. Pierce versus Pierce Foundation. Lauren receives a subpoena to testify in a civil fraud hearing. They swore me in. But I'd been telling the truth long before that. The courtroom wasn't grand. The walls were a muted beige and the flag behind the judge looked faded at the corners. A simple wooden plaque read, "Superior Court of Mecklenburg County." Nothing about the space demanded attention, but everyone in it was holding their breath. They called my name just before 10:00 a.m. I rose, walked to the stand, and placed my right hand on the Bible like every other witness before me. My voice was steady when I said I do. I didn't wear my uniform. I wore a navy blue suit, simple, clean, anonymous. No pins, no stripes. That was deliberate. If the truth didn't stand on its own, it wasn't worth telling. The lawyer for the prosecution began with soft questions. "Major Pierce, can you confirm your dates of military service?" "Yes." "July 2009 to October 2014. Your rank at discharge major. U.S. Army." He walked me through the basics: deployments, awards, injuries. I answered each with precision and pause. Not a list, not a resume. Just facts. Then he showed the court a printout from the Pierce Foundation website, screenshots archived before the page was scrubbed. "Are these claims accurate?" He pointed to a section titled Family Legacy of Service. Under it, Emily's photo was placed beside bulleted accolades that mirrored my record almost word for word. "No," I said simply. "How do you know?" "Because those are mine." Gasps didn't fill the room. No one shouted. But the air got thinner, like everyone had stopped breathing at once. When Emily's attorney stood up, the temperature shifted. "Major Pierce," he began. "Would it be fair to say that you and your sister have had strained relations?" "Yes." "So you might harbor resentment." "I might," I said evenly. "But I'm here with documentation, not resentment." He blinked, regrouped. "You never attempted to contact the Foundation about these inaccuracies. I didn't know they existed. I was erased from the narrative." He tried one last jab. "Isn't it possible that you're just bitter?" I turned to him. Calm, centered. Bitter is not the same as accurate. In the gallery, I heard a soft exhale, then saw the quiet nods of 3 veterans seated near the back. One of them clenched his cap against his chest like it was a flag. Emily sat silently at the defendant's table. Her eyes never lifted to meet mine. Her posture was perfect, frozen. Carolyn was in the last row, face pale, hands twisting a silk handkerchief that matched her shoes. She looked more like a guest at a funeral than a mother in a courtroom. I stepped down without looking back. The judge's voice was precise, clipped. Based on testimony and submitted evidence, the court finds Emily Pierce and the Pierce Foundation liable for misrepresentation of military service for personal and financial gain. The court hereby recommends the initiation of formal fraud investigation proceedings. The gavel didn't slam, it simply lowered. And with it, the story Emily had spent years constructing cracked down the middle. Outside, the sun was too bright for December. Reporters hovered like bees, cameras poised, microphones ready, but none of them came near me. They turned to chase someone else. I kept walking. I'd just passed the courthouse steps when I heard soft footsteps behind me. Major Pierce, a woman in her late 60s, approached, modest coat, white gloves, a gold chain barely peeking from under her collar. She held something small in her hand, a photo of a young man in uniform. It was old, worn at the corners. My husband served in Iraq. You probably didn't know him, but he would have respected the hell out of you. I didn't know what to say. She reached out, touching my forearm gently. Thank you. For all of it. A veteran's widow approaches Lauren after court. She simply says, thank you. For all of it. I walked through the home again, not as a guest this time, but not as a daughter either. The neighborhood was the same. Manicured lawns, quiet porches, wind chimes still clinking even though it was January. But the wreaths were gone and the holiday sparkle had dimmed. Only bare branches now and a kind of post-season stillness that made everything seem colder than it actually was. Carolyn opened the door before I knocked. She must have seen me through the window, saw my car pulling in, maybe debated whether to answer. But she did. Not with joy. Not with anger. Just something hollow behind the eyes. You're here, she said. Not a question. Not an invitation. I stepped inside. The smell of cinnamon candles lingered long after the last guest had gone. The living room had been cleared of the party. No tree, no lights, no laughter. Just the couch and the walls and the space where something important used to hang. The shelf. It was still bare. I didn't speak to her. Not yet. I stepped past her through the hallway that once held finger paintings and honor roll ribbons, through the living room that once tried to make memory into furniture. And there it was. Above the fireplace, an unclaimed rectangle of faded paint where a display case had once been mounted. I could still see the outline of where it hung, 4 nail holes perfectly spaced. Dust clung like shadow to its absence. I reached into my bag and unwrapped the frame I'd brought. It wasn't ornate, just dark walnut with a simple brass plate engraved at the bottom. Inside, a photograph of my father in uniform, a copy of his Bronze Star certificate, and a folded flag replica. I mounted it on the wall without ceremony, aligning it exactly with the faded lines. The plate read, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Pierce, honored in silence, remembered in truth. Behind me, I heard her breath hitch, a small, ragged sound. She hadn't moved from the entryway. Her voice came thinly like thread unraveling. I didn't know what to do with it. I turned to face her. Her hands were clasped together, fingers twisted in the fabric of her cardigan. She looked smaller now, like someone who had shrunk from carrying her own choices too long. I didn't know how to explain, she said again, softer this time. I'm not here for an explanation, I replied. From the kitchen, Aunt Rita emerged quietly. She gave me a nod, not one of encouragement but of understanding. Her coat was already on. She knew this wouldn't take long. I didn't walk the house again. I didn't glance at the old photos or the table where they laughed or the chair where I once sat pretending I belonged. I simply adjusted the frame one last time and turned toward the door. As I passed Carolyn, she reached out, not to grab, but maybe to anchor. Lauren, she said. One word. No plea, no anger, no apology, just my name. I stopped for a breath. Nothing more. Then I stepped outside. The winter sun was pale but kind. Rita followed close behind, her silence warmer than any words could have been. We didn't speak until we reached the car. You didn't have to do that, she said gently. I know, I answered. But you did. I looked back once, not at the woman in the doorway, but at the house. The frame would stay there. Or maybe it wouldn't. But I had placed it. That was enough. Lauren does not look back. A week ago, they told me to sit by the trash. Today I was offered a chair. The carpet beneath my boots was federal blue, soft but firm, the kind that muffled sound and carried history. The building was colder than expected, even in January. Washington, D.C. did that, made everything ceremonial, even silence. I adjusted my blazer, not a uniform, not today, and followed the assistant through the hallway. Her badge read Dot de Liaison, but she didn't say much. The corridor curved past walls lined with framed photos, panels of progress, faces of decorated generals, nonprofit leaders, advocates with clean press kits. No Emily. She had been scrubbed from all of it quietly, efficiently. I didn't take pleasure in that, but I noted it. The door opened into a small, formal room, nothing glamorous. A long table, 10 chairs, a pot of burnt coffee sitting untouched near the corner. 5 men, 3 women. Ages ranged from 20-something staffers to war-weathered colonels. They all stood when I entered, not out of obligation. It felt different. Major Pierce, one man, said with a nod, not a politician, but a general. His face wasn't familiar, but his eyes were. Steady. Earnest. You stood up without standing on anyone, he added. Rare quality these days. I said nothing. Just took the seat they offered, third from the left, not at the head. A laminated name card sat before me. It read, Lauren Pierce, Strategic Advisor, Veterans Policy Transparency Task Force. The irony wasn't lost on me. Transparency. After years of being erased, misquoted, repurposed by my own blood. Now I was asked to clarify truth. A woman across the table, maybe early 40s, prosthetic hand resting gently on a legal pad, leaned forward. We've read your statement. We've seen the video. We want you here because you've lived through what our policy often fails to see. I nodded. I could have said thank you. I didn't. The moderator gestured for brief introductions. Around the table, credentials unfolded like origami combat tours, legislative roles, advocacy groups. When it came to me, I stood only halfway. I didn't come here to relive what was taken, I said. I came to protect what's left. That was it. No backstory, no applause line. But someone clapped. Then another. And then the whole room stood. Not out of obligation. I stood with them this time. Not to acknowledge the moment, but to accept it. Fully. Without folding. Afterward, I left before the press could descend. I avoided the cameras, shook hands, briefly declined dinner invitations. Outside, the cold hit sharper than expected, but it was clean, not cutting. The city buzzed in the distance, too far to matter. A young intern held the door as I stepped out. She smiled. You look healthy, she said. Not scripted, not loaded, just genuine. I smiled back. A soft one. The kind that doesn't need armor. As I reached the curb, I didn't look back at the building. There was nothing left to reclaim in it. Nothing stolen. Nothing owed. Just a future. 1 foot forward. No bags. No ghosts. Just ground. She walks out of the building not as someone escaping the past, but as someone walking towards something new. She walked out of that room without applause, chasing her heels only dignity. The woman they once pushed aside had become the mirror they couldn't escape, reflecting a truth too sharp to deny. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but when it does, it resonates beyond the noise. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. If this story moved, you hit like, share it forward, and subscribe. Comment 1 if you felt her journey, and 2 if you think it could have gone further.